You know, and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
The World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling Podcast. This is your host, Mr. Green. And we have got ourselves another edition to cover, kinda, of WoW and whatever it is that they're doing this particular week. Listen, I am going to just go ahead and be upfront to say that I was not particularly motivated to do this episode. It is becoming increasingly more difficult to sit through these fluff. Let's just call it for what it is. These are the fluff editions of WoW. And when I mean fluff, they are clearly just filling out time with stuff that they had sitting around and just, all right, let's take an old match and stick it in here, whether it's relative to it or not. Whether it helps the story or not, is just, here we go. Let's put this in there. And we don't care if we said some stuff that we're not going to show or reference later on in the episode. It's just fluff material. I mean, there's no better way that I could describe it. These episodes have become just fluff material. And not just that. And it's somewhat difficult enough to get through there. But even this one that I'm going to review right now is essentially just a one-match show. Yeah, it filled out an entire hour with things. A contract signing for a match that was already advertised that was going to happen regardless that, that they had the contract signed or not. Promos that has just been going on and on and on. Recaps of matches that took place months ago. And then you have the actual match where, let's be honest, there was no doubt as to how it was going to resolve. This was just content. That's all I took it as. It was content for the sake of having content. But even that was not the end-all, be-all of why I suddenly decided, okay, let me do this. Because I had actually started working on this episode, I'd say, about a week ago. Just after the air date, the actual air date of it. And whereas I wasn't motivated, I was like, I'll still go, do what I'm supposed to do. I've managed this long. I got a huge stack of WoW review papers in front of me from years, and that that kind of gets me going. I was like, well, you did it this long, you might as well just keep doing what you're doing, right? And I'd go through my normal news, views, and updates and all that good stuff and try to make the show at least somewhat palatable for anybody that's giving me the time, thank you, by the way, to listen. And then I see, apparently, WoW has gone viral for all the wrong reasons. And so I decided to skip whatever news, views, and updates that I had and hone in on that, because that is probably one of the things that should be talked about as it relates to WoW. So that is going to be the news, views, and updates for this particular episode. So why don't we get to that right now? So, if you listen to this on the podcast, you probably heard some noise, but you didn't really know what that was. Well, that was a clip apparently shot by a fan we'll call it fan cam footage, and what he caught was WoW. Well, let's call them for what they like to be called. WoW superhero Genesis performing what we can only assume would have been either a corkscrew leg drop or a corkscrew senton, but she managed to do both, and not in a good way. That particular move, which again, if you're looking at this on YouTube, you would have seen it. If you just listening to the audio version, that's the noise that you heard. So it was Genesis and Catalina Speed, and to try to give a accurate description before I go any further, it was offered the second rope. She being Genesis decides to do her corkscrew move, whatever it was intended to be, and landed what would appear to be very roughly. Not just very roughly in the stomach, ribs, but her foot seemed to come across Speed's face as well. This got attention. It drew the attention of several people, actually. It is a shame that these are the times that WoW will get some level of coverage or attention applied to them, is when things like this goes wrong. Which begins the first thing that I had to say, and I have said it. I told you. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This right here was the exact thing that I had been talking about from the moment that WoW returned and they started having little issues here and there. And nothing this big, nothing that went that far, so just yet, but this is what I mean. It is not being painted as, oh my gosh, Genesis screwed up. It's more like, wow, superheroes, look how terrible you are. It doesn't apply to the one person. It is a broad brush that is applied to everybody. Whether that's fair or not. Now, I will agree that there's some people out there, or some people that's on that roster, that do not deserve to get lumped into that, but that's the problem. You're going to get lumped into it by virtue of the fact that you're a WoW superhero. Because the wrestling community, which is mostly what responded to that, keep in mind, this is not a WoW post. This is just some random fan, apparently. It's the wrestling community that came in looking at that, saying, look at this thing. Wow, this is terrible. And just all sorts of comments about it. One of the major comments, however, was coming from former Knockouts champion Taylor Wilde. Some of you may remember her from a couple of years back with TNA Wrestling, and she was kind of cited as the next big single star for them. And, this is after Gail Kim had returned briefly to the WWE. But she put in a comment, and I want to read that comment right now. Her response to this incident was, at WoW Superheroes, this wasn't innovative. It was dangerous. As someone who spent years in the ring, I can tell you this kind of spot shows a lack of training and care for your opponent's safety. I truly hope this young lady still has her spleen after that. If women's wrestling is going to grow, we need better coaching and safer execution, not reckless moves for views. And then you can kind of go down and see all the stuff that people have said. Oh, you got me, brother. You got kicked in the head. Fell down on the pelvis. And she's a perfect fit at AEW, which I don't know if that's a good, well, I'm sure that he meant it as an insult. What the fuck was she even going for? They shouldn't have people attempt moves like that when they are capable of executing them safely. A simple leg drop on the middle ropes would suffice, which I absolutely agree with that. And on and on and on and on and on and on and on. as you can imagine, it did catch a lot of comments from both fans and, as you saw, people within the industry. I want to start with saying something on behalf of Genesis, because I mean, let's be honest. Botches happen. She ain't the first person to have a botch in the ring. She's not going to be the last. Botches happen in wrestling. Even the best of them. Brock Lesnar, maybe the biggest example of that. Because unless he looked at OVW wrestling, you never thought that he would be able to do a shooting star press, but he did. Except for when it counted at that WrestleMania where he nearly knocked himself out or killed himself landing on his head. Botches take place. Now, you can minimize that. The reps will absolutely help. And I'm certainly not going to discount the other side of the coin that she probably needs more reps. But I don't want to just pile on her, because I think, first off, it's a bit unfair to say that she doesn't care. I look at that video and one of the first things I'm seeing on her is that there looks like there's concern. At least I would certainly hope so. So I don't think that it's a fair shot to be like, it shows that you have a lack of, concern about your opponent's safety. What I do believe is that she probably thinks that she was better than what she may be in reality. I agree with the comment that the guy said. It didn't require that. You could have just done something simple off of the second rope. Didn't need a corkscrew. She'd have had much more control just to see where she was going and come down straight. And hindsight is 20/20. We can all go and pick through it and whatnot, because I would assume that somewhere in training she applied this and hit it. I would assume. I would hate to think that she just decided that moment, like, I'll just try this now while we're live in front of people. So I don't want to just pile and say, she didn't care. Now, lack of training, that's a different issue. She might have a lack of training, especially when you're looking at how much she actually wrestles. To the best of my knowledge, Genesis is not I was going to say professional wrestler. That's probably not the right thing to say. A regularly working professional wrestler. One of the things that I have witnessed at a wrestling school when Robert Gibson was running his school, he had people that were new to the business that came in, certainly, but he also had people who were alleged to be professional wrestlers come in and they're like, I want to train, because he had basically a discount for them. And he, generally speaking, as far as I can remember, would ask them like two questions. Phrase it however he phrased it, but it essentially came down to this. How long have you been in the business? And then that person will answer, I've been in the business for 6 years, or whatever the case may be. The follow-up question to that was something to the effect of, well, how many matches have you had? And that's usually where he got what he was trying to get out of him. And then sometimes you'd hear, I took a hiatus and I was this, that, and the other. So, I probably had 30 matches. Now, this would be somebody that says they've been wrestling for 6 years. You're like, well, then you haven't been wrestling for 6 years. If you had 30 matches, you haven't been wrestling for 6 years. You've been wrestling for less than one. And in some cases, you might be wrestling for less than 6 months. That probably would apply to Genesis. How long have you been doing this? Well, on TV, you could probably say that she's been doing it for, 4 or 5 years now? If you include the Access TV portion of her run. But you could also apply the other side of that coin. Like, well, how many matches have you had? If she grand totaled her matches, she maybe have 50. I don't know. I don't think that she wrestles beyond the weekends that WoW asks her to wrestle. And so that's probably not a good thing. It's never been a good thing for WoW. I have spoken on that on numerous occasions. Now, I'm sure that has fallen on deaf ears. It won't mean anything coming out of me to say it. But this is the proof, or at least part of it. It's not the first time that I've heard about people being hurt in the WoW ring, by the way, for lack of training or not being as sharp as they could or whatever the case may be. This is not a new function. This is just the first time people have seen it. Beforehand, it was in a very controlled environment. Inside of Belasco, inside of the TV studios that they had out there, what they dubbed the WoW Arena, which only lasted a year. Imagine that. But this is not a new occurrence. We've heard about people that got hurt, knocked out, something torn, or this, that, or the other. And some people have flat out quit over it. Just, I'm out of here. This place isn't any good for me. I'm gone. If you are, you know, and again, I'm certainly not going to go piling on Genesis, like I said, but I'm going to use her as an example because she's the one that's in the middle of this controversy. If you are at Genesis and WoW is the only place that you've ever worked, and you have very little concept of pro wrestling beyond the WoW, then you probably don't see an issue to begin with. Having a match, you know, once a year, or what, I'm not going to say once. Let's just say, you know, one weekend out of the year, which with them might equate to, let's say 3 on the average on a night. So nine matches. Let's go between 9 and 12. 9 and 12 matches crammed into a weekend for the entirety of the year, and that's pretty much where it starts and stops. If that's all you know, then there's probably nothing that she would look at and be like, well, what's the problem? You know, she wouldn't see an issue with that, but the reps help. You don't have to take my word for it. It doesn't, you know, I'm sure coming from me, somebody will easily dismiss it. Well, what the fuck does he know, right? Ask some of the people that you work with. Talk to them. You ain't got to listen to me. And this is not berating. You know, I actually say this with all sincerity. I think that there's talent there, or at least the potential of talent. But I also think that WoW stifles not just her, but several people. Because when they've been convinced that I only need to do this portion of the time, and either I do not want or I'm not allowed to go wrestle someplace else so I can keep the rhythm of this going, then it's a problem waiting to happen. This is not going to be the last time that this takes place. It might be the last time that we see it in video, but it's not going to be the last time it takes. Like I said, it's not even the first. The best thing that can come from this incident, which, by the way, I will say that I did reach out to persons on the roster. And I understand that Speed was okay. You know, she it was a little banged up, but she was okay from what I understand. But I also understand that another botch took place involving the same person later on. It would be a good thing if this led to the open discussion that, hey, maybe some of y'all need to be getting more practice in than just showing up here and memorizing the match and going through the motions and then, all right, see you next year. It may be this could open the door. I doubt that it will, but it could open the door. The reason I say that I doubt that it will is because, like I said, this is not the first time that this has happened. And here's what I fully expect to take place following this. Not a damn thing. I think WOW is going to ignore it because it's not directly in their purview. And by the time they get to another set of tapings, it would have been long forgotten about, and they will just continue doing the same thing that they've always done. Because it's not a big enough issue for the wrestling community to stay on, and McLean and WOW in general do not cater towards that community. You remember about, what was it, a year ago when the Tonga twins got on and they was like, we had it up to this here with WOW and hashtag fuck WOW and this, that, and the other. Where did that go? Went nowhere. And I'm not going to say that no one cared. Someone cared out there, but did enough people care? It wasn't enough for them to keep going through it. It wasn't enough for them to pursue whatever it is that they said they were going to pursue. Like, you haven't heard The Last of Us, and we're going to say this, and their news will be released. They did do a live stream, but that's pretty much where it stopped. And that's what I expect out of this. The people who have been hurt at WOW either suck it up and they come back, or they say, enough of this, and they quit. But WOW in and of itself isn't going to just disappear or dry up, because I'm sure Dave McClain sees no reason for it to do it. It's like, why change it? He's never changed it. And I don't think this is going to be any different. Now, having said that, again, this is, I would hope, even if it's just amongst the roster themselves, that the discussion at least took place or begins to take place. You may need to get some more reps, and not practice in the warehouse. I'm sorry, the WOW training facility. Not just that, like actually have matches. Because there is a difference. I know that seems a little off for some people, but there is a difference between doing this in this controlled environment in this warehouse and in this ring, opposed to in a ring surrounded by fans that's a little rowdy at times, or having different expectations than what a cultivated audience may have. I think that Genesis can be good. She certainly is a better promo than once she got out of that whole exile thing. God, I hope I don't have to hear her carry on about that nonsense again. But she's a good speaker on the mic. Has a good look. Performs well that I've seen. This just was not reflective of that. She probably, and I find myself using Campanelli quite a bit as an example. But Campanelli doesn't do anything ridiculously complicated. The things that she does do are done well. And at this point, not just at this point, just in general, I would rather you do that than all right, let me try to let me do this corkscrew 450 or whatever, because it's not necessary. No one's expecting that out of a WOW talent. That's unfortunate, but no one's expecting that out of a WOW talent. And as you see, just with those comments, like I said, WOW gets painted with a broad brush. It is already looked at as somewhat of a wrestling thing that just exists in its own little bubble, separate of everybody else and everything else around it. We do not have to acknowledge that there's other women's wrestling in the world anywhere, except for when we have to bring it up because so-and-so came in and we have to show some level that they had a past. But outside of that, I mean, they usually tend to try to ignore it. There is no wrestling world outside of WOW. And as long as they cater to the WoW audience, they're fine. It's when they step beyond that, that's where it becomes a problem. And this was the step beyond that, and that's what it showed, and that's how people reacted to it. Is every reason why it probably just does not get any traction. I certainly hope that if there's any positive that has been gained out of this, or can be gained, is that it at least opens up the dialogue that, hey, some of y'all need to be doing this well beyond the goddamn WoW tapings. It ain't gonna hurt you. Now, if WoW, as a management, turns around and says, we still don't want you doing that, then that's a problem. And that's very likely. I mean, it's very possible that it could happen. They could still turn around and be like, no, we don't want you going anywhere else. What? Allow some independent promotion to ride off of the names that we built? Why, by just having just show up on their thing will cause, them to sell out? Can't have them do that. That won't happen, obviously, but you get what I'm saying. So, I mean, if they turn around, and because I've heard that too. I've heard that management just doesn't want them to go anywhere else, which is insanely stupid. I get that they probably don't want them to be at somebody else's TV, but I mean, really, how many of them just going to pop up on somebody else's TV? Very few are in that position. So that leaves your indies. And I know the indie girls that are there will show up at an indie show elsewhere. And good for them for doing it. But the ones that just came in, from an entirely different background, like, hey, I was a photographer before I started wrestling here 6 weeks ago, or a model, or an actress, or a makeup artist, or whatever that they hired, stunt woman. For those, and they don't let them go anywhere, it's a problem, and it's going to create a problem. Like I said, this is not going to be the last time that happens. Oh, it won't happen in that same way, but it'll happen. It's unfortunate to say that, but it's gonna. It's so long as WoW keeps producing the way that they've always produced. And the worst part is that the manager and the manager of the manager will not see any reason to change it. It's worked for Dave McClain this far. I doubt that he's ever going to want to change his gears to do something different. And Jeannie Buss does not know any better. Even this alone, I'm pretty sure it never made a blip on her radar. She just moved on. Probably didn't even know it happened. And even if she did, I'm sure Dave McClain would have talked her right off of that ledge. Oh no, this is what happens in wrestling. It's fine. It's a shame, but it happens. Another thing that we got that was going on that I feel like I needed to bring up or make note of as far as WoW is concerned is apparently there's a number of people who have disappeared off of the WoW roster. Now, I haven't gone through and tried to do the full-on roster deal like I had done, at least not yet. I haven't gone through that, but fortunately for me, there has been posts that have shown several people who have been either added to or removed from the roster page. And I would like to read some of those as it is right now. The ones that are listed as not being there, or at least they have not been placed on the roster page anymore. Adriana Gambino, Angelica Dante, Tiki Chamorro, Holiday, Siren the Voodoo Doll, Foxy and Roxy Fierce all appear to no longer be available on the roster. And I know that for the WoW faithful, it's disheartening for them. It has also been brought up that Brittnie Bay, Chantella Chella, Crystal Waters, the Beast, also no longer listed on the roster page. So you have a significant turnover of roster members at this point. I was actually surprised that they kept the Beast. I mean, specifically the Beast. I am surprised that they had her on that thing as long as they did. I mean, I thought it was pretty clear that she had moved on and gone someplace else and, probably not concerned with or thinking about WoW at this point. Tiki being gone, not surprising whatsoever. We'd already seen that she was with child at that time. And so I did not expect her to show back up. I also noticed that Sprout Greens is no longer listed there. Tadavik the Gamer, Americana. None of them are listed as being a part of the WoW roster any longer. That also presents somewhat of a problem. How many times do we have that where how are you even remotely supposed to get behind somebody? Want to see them succeed, move on and get to the next level of whatever it is that they're trying to do when, first off, you might not see them for months at a time. Secondly, just like this, they come in, they may be there for a couple of matches and then they just disappear. They're gone. It's some of them could barely be on TV to begin with. How do you get behind and want to see someone succeed when you have really no idea who you're rooting for that will be there tomorrow? Valentina Diamante, let me use her as an example. She was on last season, but how much of her did you actually see? You saw her for a couple of matches. She lost a squash match and then she was just gone. And then lo and behold, she just shows back up, talking to the press about, hey, WoW Superheroes in town in Las Vegas and Fremont Street and all that nonsense. Which I still don't understand what they did that for, because, how many times did you see the Brooklyn Brawler go out to the press releases and talk about how we're all great here in the WWE? They usually sent the stars in. I think the last person I want to see that pop up on my TV is somebody that got beaten in like 50 seconds. So, WoW has its methods, I guess. But there are these moments like this that make it very, very, very difficult to sit there and watch it. But as talent goes out, talent must come in, and to some of those I apply that very loosely. So what do we have here? We got new WoW wrestlers. I don't know if I want to call them superheroes anymore. I never liked the name. I thought it was ridiculous to begin with, but since Jeannie Buss came up with it, like, our leader Jeannie Buss said that everybody's a superhero, whatever. Brooklyn Love, a wrestling tennis player. I'm not opposed to that, but I don't know if everybody's going to get the gimmick of Brooklyn Love unless they've watched tennis to understand where that comes, where the love comes from in that. Destiny Diesel. So we got another wrestling mechanic. But they seem like they went back into the archives of WoW and repackaged Wendy Wheels. Not Adriana Gambino, but Adriana. Oh, I don't know her sister. She's going to be there now. So you have that. Ariana Gambino. Yeah, my goodness. And then we got the Marvel's ripoff of Blade with Drusilla Blade. And she's going to come in with 2 katana blades that we know full well she's never going to use. Because she's a vampire hunter, you know. I'm not even sure how they were going to make that gimmick work. How's this person going to walk around hunting vampires? There's not even somebody on the roster with a vampire gimmick. So you got them. Is there anybody else that's there that's brand new? I don't know. I think Sierra Sands. I'm not sure exactly what her full-on gimmick is supposed to be. Doesn't look overly gimmicky, but she does have the alliteration in her name, and you know how Wild loves their alliterations. You have to start and stop with the same letter for the first and last name because, hey, that's what sells. And I'm almost certain that Sierra Sands by this time next season will be a fond memory. Scout Parker has a new look. I'm not sure if I like it just yet, but we'll see. We haven't seen her in a while on television, but there you have a lot of turnover for these Wild superheroes. And who amongst them feels like they're in any different a spot than they were when they got there? I'm waiting. It's like who on this roster feels like they have grown in any regard? WoW does not feel like the place for growth. I mean, I know I just got off of the subject, but just going back to that whole botch thing. Genesis doesn't feel like she's in any better a position than she was when she got there. Oh, you know what? Let me correct that. That's not entirely true because when she came in, she was part of a team, and she stepped out of that. Now, once she got out of it, she kind of stagnated, but there you go. So, yay! I guess they made a star out of her yet. But in any case, those are the names that have been thrown around for people who've departed WoW, people who've returned. There are a couple of them that are on this list that I shouldn't say list, on their roster page, and I'm still not completely convinced that they're not gone, or WoW isn't just going to run the footage of them first before they decide to remove them off of the page. And I'm talking people like Holly Swag. Who was that else on here that I'm not sure about? Ozzy, because I've seen her pop up in some other promotion. Tormenta, I'm not entirely sure about her, although I do think that she has a couple of matches that she did show up in Vegas for. Which again, is a good thing that WoW lives in his own little bubble. Because Chick Tormenta showed up on NXT and was just essentially their enhancement talent. That was their world champion, getting squashed by Lola Vice in like 3 minutes. Their world's champion. Let me repeat that. Now, I don't look at it as a world's title. If anybody's listening to me on this thing, you know that I don't regard that thing as a world's championship whatsoever. But still, it's their world's champion. WoW, because of things like that, just make it come off as like a highly financed but poorly run indie. That's how it feels more often than not. There was a response to who was it? Sean Ross Sapp. I think that I almost can never keep his name straight. This is like the Sapp portion of it just throws me off. But I think Sapp was responding to a fan. And it was something along the lines of the result of that botched move got some people to ask about WoW and their hiring / training practices, right? All things that we've talked about, all things that we have, seen and discussed, whether that be in the comment section, whether that be just on the podcast, whether that be messages that I got, messages that I've returned. We've all had this conversation about the hiring practices of WoW. I have been public to say that I'm not really in favor for their hiring practices, particularly hiring people off of backstage and just like, hey guys, you want to do a superhero show? Because one of the key points that I disliked is that a few of those ads in my world are somewhat deceptive. There were 1 or 2 of them that barely mentioned wrestling. And if you weren't paying attention to it, you would think that, oh man, they're trying to do a superhero show. And then they get there and then you're doing wrestling. Because they asked, and again, I'm not going to say that every ad that they did this, but I have seen 1 or 2 that have, where they excluded wrestling out of it and they asked for everything else around it. Stunt fighting, stage work, tumbling, wrestling, not boxing, combat sport. They phrased it in every other way other than professional wrestling. And if they didn't have wrestling in the title, there probably wouldn't have been any reference to it at all. So I've not been overly fond of their hiring practices. And before I go on, that does not mean that the people that they hire can't be good at it. I'm not going to discount that. I'm not going to take it away. I've seen and known too many other people that have been in wrestling who weren't necessarily wrestling fans, but they got hooked up with it somehow and then they became good or excelled or, grew from it. So it is not a knock necessarily on the persons. Some of them have no intention of doing anything with wrestling beyond what WoW has offered them. So you got both sides of that coin. Some will fall in love with it. To the ones that fall in love with it and want to see themselves do something more in the pro wrestling industry, I say bravo. To the ones that only saw this as a means to pad their resume, and they exist, to say that I was on national TV and they exist, that's the situation. I'm like, I'm not a fan of that. No. And I can't sit here and try to lie about it and say that I wouldn't be a fan of it. But anyway, in response to that, Sean Ross Sapp, about the hiring practices and whatnot, he wrote this. This is on Twitter. Sometimes they get indie wrestlers, sometimes they get really good ones. Other times, casting calls are answered, they train them internally, and they only wrestle at WoW for years on end. All right? And perfectly fair comment that he put up. That got a response from what is now the former Chantella Cella, because apparently she stepped down from WoW. And her statement was this: as someone that spent 8 years at WoW, I can confirm a lot of the girls are signed to contracts that only allow them to wrestle at WoW. They only film once a year with plenty of downtime between tapings. Sadly, it prevents them from getting better and the product from growing. She continued on to say promises of changes coming and hope that it would take off. Nothing ever changed, and I eventually lost hope. I know that sounds harsh. I decided it was time to move on. I cannot fault Cella. Cella doesn't exist anymore. Raylyn. I cannot fault Raylyn for that decision. I had a similar statement when I was thinking about the disciplinarian version 2. There is a disciplinarian from their earlier years in the early 2000s. But I had a similar thought about her at one point. In that, here's somebody who went into Booker T's Reality of Wrestling. Trained there, got a pretty good push within that promotion, won their Diamonds Division Championship. I think she had it like twice. And then started making the rounds about the indies. Then she got hooked up with WOW. And that was it. Now, I'm not saying that it was a bad decision for her to go. But I am saying that she has seemingly given up some of the best years of her career to that company. And really, in terms of career growth, I don't think gained all that much from it. And I liked her, you know, at least not the incarnation of the disciplinary, but Robin Reed. That version of her, I absolutely liked, and I wanted to see her, you know, succeed. But the disciplinarian was just there as a gimmick. She didn't really do anything beyond that point. You never really heard her cut any promos. She didn't have any matches of any true significance. She didn't participate in any angles that really helped forward her as a talent. She felt like she was just there to provide a match. Several matches, but it just felt like she was just there to provide a match. Now, is that inherently bad? No. Somebody's got to do it. But you would think that she would have been in a stronger position walking in with experience already, opposed to some of the people around her that got that. But it is what it is. And I can assume that Raylyn may have begun to feel the same way. There's only so many times I could put my faith into, it's gonna go somewhere, guys. It's gonna do this. We're gonna change this. We're gonna be in wrestling in front of arenas, or I don't know what promises have been made internally. I can only guess that it's the same promises that almost every other wrestling promoter makes. We're gonna get on national TV. We're gonna, cable. We're gonna do pay-per-view. We're gonna have action figures in the stores, and we're gonna sell merchandise, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it seems like it just was never meant to be. And it's a hard enough thing for WOW, and again, in and of itself, to get out of his own way. So when I read something like promises of changes coming and hoping that it would take off and nothing ever changed, it's not shocking to me. I wish I could say that it was, but it's absolutely not shocking, because it's never changed. And not in terms of style, not in terms of presentation, not in terms of how they even view or treat the audience. How do you have a wrestling show to try to put somebody over on there and show a match that they had 10 years ago and don't even show the finish? To inform me of how good she is. That's the episode that had Tadvik on it, by the way. And then she's on there, and then boom, she's gone. And whereas they presented it like this grand return of a wrestling legend, if you leave it up to them to talk about it. Once she was out of there, she was out of there. Not even on the roster. Hadn't been brought up or mentioned since. There was also another response to Mr. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful.com, for those of you that want to know where he's from. And that was from the former Wrecking Ball, Heidi Howitzer. Her response was this: the unfortunate truth about WOW is the company continually shoots itself in the foot. and won't ever see the growth they want because of that. It's upsetting to see because of the potential of what could be otherwise. I don't know if it could be put any better than that. Wow, oftentimes does not feel like it will get out of its own way to allow the growth. David McClain clearly has his way of doing things and does not want to change it. One of the former persons that was working with him, Stephen Dickey, said it in one of the Reddit posts about when they was talking about AJ Mendez or AJ Lee now. And I'm paraphrasing to say that she realized that this was the sandbox of Selena Majors and David McClain, and AJ was just talent in it. And that right there took whatever drive or motivation that she had to do anything away. And I can absolutely see that. I can absolutely see that. Because this company or the show doesn't feel like it wants to change anything. It feels oftentimes like it's just, as long as we can make the shows, as long as we can produce the content, as long as we can have one every week, as long as I can make my superheroes with, my live act, if I can borrow a line from another podcaster out there, if I can have my live action figures, then I'm good. I don't need anything else. And Jeannie Buss, again, doesn't know any better. She is dumping money into a well or just throwing it up against the wall, and probably has no concept of what it takes or what a successful wrestling promotion looks like, or for that matter, that there's a wrestling community to even cater to. I think she is like a lot of people that have gotten a lot of money and then decide to do something outside of that given field. Now, you usually hear that about athletes, like, oh, so-and-so opened up a bar or a lounge or this, that, or the other. But they don't necessarily know how to operate a lounge or a bar or a restaurant. And so they're at the mercy of the persons that they hire to do it for them. That sounds pretty familiar. The only difference is that she's got plenty of money to blow on this and not feel the brunt of it, because I doubt that she's pumping in multiples of millions of dollars every year to do it. I completely doubt that. But she also is probably not micromanaging this thing either. So even though you have a public statement by Howitzer or a public statement by Ray Lynn, or you have a video that goes viral with Genesis, and you have wrestlers out there that'll say, hey, look, this doesn't look good, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, it's not going to change anything. Unfortunate, but I really doubt that it's ever going to change anything. As far as WOW is concerned, the wrestlers that they hire are perfectly fine. There is no reason to get anybody else, because why get somebody who can come in here and cause problems for me asking questions when I could just hire somebody and train them from the ground up, and inside of 5 to 6 weeks have them perfectly ready to be on national TV. There you go. So, I don't know. We'll leave it at that and see where this goes. But I had to take a moment to just kind of talk about this for a little while and get this off. Because again, when else are you going to talk about it? Because by this time, next 2 weeks, all this will be forgotten about and they'll move on. The wrestling community will have forgotten all about WOW because it won't be important to them at all. And they'll go back to the wrestling that they want to watch. But just in closing, It is sad that the biggest amount of coverage that WoW has gotten from wrestling eyeballs, whether that be wrestling fans, wrestling insiders, other wrestlers that wrestle in other companies, the most coverage that they got didn't exist off of some great promo. It didn't exist off of some great match. It didn't even exist off of some great episode or event. It existed off of this. It existed off of a botch. That overshadowed everything that they have probably done in the last 3 seasons. It is a pity. We'll be back to the review in a moment.
I hate Sloane Jacobs. 3 years ago, that stupid, naive teenager got her dream job. Not off of skill, not off of talent, off of luck and potential. And 3 years ago, I knew that. I was so intimidated by not being able to live up to the potential people saw in me that I let the best opportunity of my career slip through my fingers. I hate Sloane Jacobs. She didn't know how good she had it. But today is different. Today, the Notorious Mimi has a shot at the WWE ID Women's Championship. Now, I'm not going to rely on luck to win this title. No, Sloane Jacobs wasted all my luck. Tonight, there's only one way I become WWE ID Women's Champion. Tonight, the Notorious Mimi has to be perfect.
Dear Maserati, I haven't forgotten what you did to me last year. Every single time I challenged for this championship, you got involved and you cost me. But then you want to come back and it's, oh, poor Maserati, give her a title shot. She had to relinquish the belt, as if you're the only person to ever have to relinquish a championship. See, there are 2 types of people in this world. The person who cries about what they've been through and complains, and the person who steps up and becomes better and becomes a champion. And Maz, you only have yourself to thank because of what I have become. You are who has taught me to do whatever it takes to be a champion. So on Sunday night, Maz, it's not going to be your epic comeback return championship victory. It's going to be yet another name that Brittnie Brooks beats in her historic FSW Women's Championship reign. Why? Because it's Brittnie, bitch.
And we are back. This episode of WoW in Review was episode 409, season 4, episode 9, the title End of the Line. The air date, November the 8th, the chronological number 165. And the show opened up with Previously on WoW. And it recaps Holly Swag and Penelope Pink match. And as nice as that was, I wrote down, why does it say live in Las Vegas when it's not? I mean, I guess it was live when they shot it. I don't know, but they keep putting that slate up on the show. Live in Las Vegas. When we're done with that, I don't think it's live anymore. If I showed up at Las Vegas at this point, I don't think I would find WoW on Fremont Street, but I might be wrong. Somebody correct me if I am. After we get out of the recap segment, we get the first images of the Classmaster, and she's making her stupid faces. Frame number 1, and I looked at this, I was like, it's no wonder nobody takes this place seriously. It is no wonder no one takes this thing seriously. The first thing that you see coming out of that is this goofball in a child's outfit with cap and gown making ridiculous faces, and that is your number 1 contender / former champion. What? Why would anybody sit there through that? And I shouldn't say sit through it. Why would anybody take it serious that this is supposed to be some sort of must-see championship match? I mean, honestly, why would anyone look at that and be like, I need to tune into this one? It's absurd. It doesn't even begin to sell the match. It's so absurd. And then, before I even go on, when I look at the landscape of their contemporaries, it's just worse. I mean, think about all the other women's champions that exist right now. And I know WoW is in their own little bubble and they're never going to acknowledge it, because in Dave McClain's mind, this is the greatest women's wrestling on the planet. And it's unfair to say that everybody there is not talented. I'm not going to say that, but he cannot possibly believe that is the best women's wrestling on the planet. Well, you know what? He might. Because I doubt that he's running around looking at matches from MLW or AEW or TNA or WWE or NXT or whatever. But just Sol Ruka, Athena, Lola Vice, Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, Naomi when she was there, Tatum Paxley. Who else is in the lineups right now? Jordan Grace. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's like, and the Classmaster is what is comparative to that. Because he doesn't even look serious. And like I said, it didn't take you more than a frame of video to look at that and see her just goofing off. And that's supposed to sell people to watch this. The first segment coming out of that little video recap / promo or preview was Dave McClain opening up with the contract signing. Now keep in mind, this is the contract signing for the match that's taking place later on in the episode. So, why? I mean, it's not like we know that this isn't going to take place. They already advertised it a week ago. A week prior to this, they already told you it's going to be the main event, Classmaster versus Tormenta. So why am I being wasted time seeing a contract signing for a match that's already a foregone thing? The one thing that they did do right here is that Tormenta came out with a translator. Imagine that. I don't know if I can pronounce her name correctly. Mela Henao. I think that's it, if I'm probably butchering her name. But at least they had one this time. Opposed to what he did last time. Like, I know you don't understand what I'm saying, but you'll understand this. As I touch my heart and speak English again, you'll magically understand what I'm saying now. So the first thing I wrote was, where was she before? This starts, and the Classmaster and Samantha Smart, are involved in this as well, of course. Classmaster doesn't say anything. She just stands around. And then we get to the signing portion. And for whatever reasons, Dave McClain brings up the hotel that he got these pins from. I was like, why is that important? Maybe they paid him to bring it up. I don't know. Because it sounded like he was like 2 teaspoons away from it's like, hey, don't tear up this pin from the fabulous Riviera Resort Hotel and Casino Plaza Hotel. And these pins are just as valuable as the rooms that you can get for the cheap price of $50 a night. Sound like he was just ready to go off into salesman mode if he gave him like another 2 minutes. But it didn't matter because Samantha Smart had her own, I guess, luxurious pin that she decided to use instead of the cheap one from the hotel that David stole it from. I don't know. They sign, or Classmaster signs. Again, outside of that, doesn't really do anything. After the signing, Samantha Smart tries to take the belt. I was like, why her? Why is she trying to take the belt? This feels more about Samantha Smart than the Classmaster. This has no heat, and it added nothing. This entire thing has felt more about Samantha Smart than the Classmaster has anything to do with. She has yet to have cut a promo on Tormenta at all. I mean, I get that she has a manager, but that doesn't mean that she's a mute. She could have opened her mouth and said something. But that didn't happen. This just feels all about Samantha Smart. And the Classmaster is just incidental to that. So they do a little tug of war over the belt. Tormenta yanks her and pulls her into the table, and she takes a bump. And I don't think the audience gave a shit. They didn't know. They didn't realize that, Samantha Smart was supposed to be some sort of long-term heinous heel. I mean, I'm sure they got the idea that she was not supposed to be a likable person. But it's also not enough to where the crowd was going to pop off of, you got what you had coming to you. Most of them probably have no idea what's going on. And like I said, this added nothing. It was just a segment to fill out the time for something that was already pretty much set in stone. We're having this match. So the contract signing at this point felt unnecessary. The next segment, we recap Tormenta winning the World Championship from the Classmaster. I was like, this is fluff. Why do I need to see this? Then we get another segment. Paola Mayfield. She has another promo. Essentially, why I should be champion. That's basically what her promos are. For some reason or another, the World Championship is orbited by Classmaster and Mayfield at this point. Where Reina Del Rey is in this particular thing, I don't know. And it doesn't make any sense to me that of all the people, she should have had the biggest claim on the title than anybody. Oh, sure, you could be like, okay, Classmaster should get a rematch, and I still hate that name. But she should be asking for a rematch, but Del Rey had a match, and right or wrong, whether they want to, utilize that or not, the champion got hurt in her first defense against Reina Del Rey. She should have been running around saying that she was the uncrowned champion. Right then and right there. When she walked into the back, they should have been, all right, well, we're going to have to redo something. You can't ignore this. This happened. But Mayfield does her same thing. I'm the best. I should be the champion. Give me a title shot. I want a title shot. Next segment is a wild spot for their website. Segment after that, we recap Tormenta being hurt. David McClain says it's the match that all of us have wondering if she can compete tonight. And I wrote down, it's been 3 months, man. This injury aired in July. July 26th is November. It's very hard to have a sense of can she compete after 3 months off air. With no real updates to what she's doing other than the random comment by the commentators. Well, she's in Mexico right now, and she's asked us to give her privacy. You can't get emotionally attached to anything. They just don't allow it. How am I supposed to care about this woman if I don't even see it or hear it or whatever the case may be? And then you finally get to a point where she does do a promo, and it's in this episode. It's very difficult. It is very, very difficult to suspend my disbelief and have this sense of, I wonder will she be okay in the match. I mean, at that point, you're expecting her to have been able to heal up. And more importantly than that, he's the matchmaker. And this is another one of those things I keep getting on wild about. I was like, how am I supposed to look at him as the recognized on-screen boss / matchmaker, but then somehow treat him like, well, I have no idea if she's going to be able to do this or not. Why wouldn't he know? Are you telling me people just show up and be like, all right, well, I'm just walking out the ringside. Don't check and see if I'm healthy or not. And don't book me on the thing. Just, I'm here, so I'm going to do it. It's ridiculous. The segment after that was a recap. Oh, I'm sorry, not a recap, a re-airing. Reina Del Rey with the Alliance versus Tormenta. The original air date, July 26th. They ended in a no contest. And I wrote down, why did this air? It doesn't help the main event. And I know why it aired. It's just fluff content. It's everything that I said. They're just doing that to buff out the hour. Because you're not going to tell me that this, showing your champion go down in flames by somebody who wasn't even mentioned as a top contender whatsoever, helps sell the main event that you're walking into. The heat was with Reina. Classmaster could have got a shot after that, but the heat was with Reina. If I'm watching this, that would have prepped me for seeing Tormenta try to get even, of being put on the shelf, potentially hurt on purpose. If wink, wink. Why are they showing me this? It's like the same theory they did with Tadvik. Why are you showing me this? Okay, yeah, she had a couple of good spots during the course of the match, but this is her return, and I'm not even going to see a match that she won. This is a match where Tormenta's return. Same rules apply. The champion. And we don't even have a match that we can show that she won, to try to get people prepped for it. We just see a match where she got German suplex and hurt her shoulder. I don't want to say dislocated. I don't want to get the wrong diagnosis, but you get what I'm saying. She got hurt. And the match ended. And her focus went completely around that to the Classmaster. Why is that? That didn't even make sense to me. But this only serves to show Tormenta went down in her first defense. And the question, why is Del Rey not getting the title shot? Or at least the first one. We come out of that. We already know that it was no contest. No reason to go off into the match in itself. And then we get a Samantha Smart promo. She talks about the title being gone for a while and Tormenta being hurt. And that probably was about as close to pushing this angle as you're going to get. And this, again, it does more to put over Samantha Smart than the Classmaster. Classmaster says nothing. I mean, she's not even there. And Smart's promos is fairly rinse and repeat. Everybody else is stupid. I'm smart, and we deserve the championship. Once we have the championship, the world will be a better place. Something along those lines. It doesn't really alternate that much. And she puts a lot of effort of big talk into it, but it's like walking a treadmill. It's like there's a lot of effort that's going on in the walking, but you ain't getting nowhere. And that's how this comes off to me. It's effort in what she's saying, but it's not going anywhere. It's not putting over the angle. It's not putting over the championship as being important. It's not putting over Classmaster as a client. It's not even putting Tormenta over as the champion, somebody worth beating or whatever. It's like it doesn't aim for anything. It's just title shot. And we'll get it back. And we'll enlighten the stupids and whatever. All things that no one is ever going to care about. Then we go to the next segment, which is Tormenta's promo. This is completely subtitled. Sounds good, but not in English. She has fantastic emotion and fire and delivery. You can at least get the feel of the vibe off of it, even if you don't understand it. Now, you need to sit there and read it if you don't speak the language. But if you can sit there and read it, then it's fine. But this is one of those things that, it probably should have happened months ago. During one of these times between July and November, these promos should have happened a long time ago. Especially when she's putting over that she's, still fighting and she'll be a champion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This feels like it's in the wrong place. And her promo skips over Reina Del Rey. Again, I don't understand why that would be. She's going on and starting to talk about the Classmaster, despite the fact that she mentioned that she was hurt. Classmaster didn't hurt her. Why is she talking about that? It just is like, I know it was Mike Tyson that punched me in the face, but you know what? Let me tell you something, little guy. This is like, I'm just going to go around the person that knocked me out and I'm going to address you over here. This is another example of WOW's lack of continuity to me. And then we get to the match. The segment and the main event, Classmaster versus Tormenta. It was announced as the main event, even though this is a one-match show. So I don't know why it would have been the main event of anything. It's the only event. There is no main event. This is the only event that aired, other than stuff that they recut from weeks back. And then we get Samantha Smart cutting another Samantha Smart promo. It sounds memorized, and I have to repeat. This feels like they've done far more to endorse and prop up Samantha Smart than anything that they did or said about the Classmaster. Even when they come out, it doesn't feel like the Classmaster's thing. The first thing you see is Samantha Smart. Classmaster comes out behind her. Shows us something in the book. I don't know why they continue to do that spot because, what is it even supposed to mean? Beyond the fact that we have to do something cute when we walk out. So I'm going to show you this book page that I'm sure neither one of us are going to look at or read, or it doesn't have anything relative to what's going on in front of us. And then they close it and she walks out and holds up the book like it's a championship, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Too much focus on Samantha Smart, not enough focus on the person that's actually in the match. And I am not some Classmaster fan, but I have to say she does not get enough. She didn't even get the opportunity to try to put the Classmaster thing over. I might have had an entirely different opinion about it if she was able to do something with it. Because I'm not going to act like her gimmick is the dumbest gimmick in wrestling. I'm not going to act like that because it ain't. Wrestling is loaded with gimmicks that are brilliant to idiotic. But one of the things that help the brilliant ones be brilliant is that the person is able to talk about or do some things to help get the brilliance of that thing over. I would have never believed in Evil Doink the Clown if Matt Bourne was not able to get it over for those 6 to 8 months that he did it. I would have just looked at him as, oh man, this is a wrestling clown. But because he was able to do something with it, I was like, oh, okay. Doink, wow. You know what I mean? On paper, it would seem ridiculous. And somehow he managed to make that thing work. On paper, the Classmaster looks ridiculous, and it is ridiculous because she never got a chance to change anybody's mind about it. Or at least even present a reasonable argument that you could change your mind about. So this is presented as we don't know if Tormenta's ready. And the first thing I wrote following that was, wouldn't David know? He is the matchmaker. Why wouldn't he know? The crowd did not care about this mostly. I mean, look, you're going to get people that's going to pop on the moves, and they're happy to see this show live in front of them, and costumes and pretty girls and all, and the stunts that they are performing. And that's pretty much where it comes down to, stunts. But as far as having an emotional investment in who won or lost, it didn't seem like that was there. Hearing the Classmaster's name during this match was torturous. It's as bad as hearing David. But, I mean, and it's not worth going through the blow by blow or the play by play and this, that, and the other. It's just, the match was fine. But I can honestly say there was not a second in my mind that this match was in doubt. Not a second. One reason being is that this thing was shot a year ago. So, like, why do I care about this? And it being shot a year ago isn't necessarily something that's going to discount whether the match is good, but there was nothing here that was happening that made me feel like this match, man, I have to watch this. Because people talked about how great it was, or this, whatever the case may be. None of that took place. And so, what happens at the end? At some point, they get themselves out onto the floor. And, Samantha Smart tries to interfere a couple of times. But here is where, I guess, managerial stupidity reared its ugly head for her, for our super genius Samantha Smart. They get out onto the floor. Tormenta and Classmaster are having their confrontation. Smart decides that it's a good idea to stand directly behind Classmaster while she's fighting. Classmaster rears back, and as she does, she elbows Samantha Smart in the face, knocking her out. That, is the mistake that cost her. Tormenta's able to get her back into the ring. She climbs up to the top rope. Meteor from the top rope. Boom, there you go. 1, 2, 3. And I wrote, the main event is what it was what it was. The audience didn't seem to understand the one fall thing because Katie Marie Jones is just doing what she is programmed to do. And I honestly don't even try to say that as an insult, but you look at a Katie Marie Jones introduction to a match and then go back a couple of years to the Lauren Huckle introduction to a match and tell me that there's any difference between the two, even remotely. They do the same thing. Dave McClain just created an interchangeable part, and Katie Marie Jones is probably not aware that she became an interchangeable part. Stand here in the middle, smile, announce it, hold the microphone up, and then finish your announcement. I wish they would stop that one fall nonsense. I mean, it's like trying to force what was an organic thing that happened on the indies, and we just have to try to make that happen here at WoW. So anyhow, after the match, McClain gets into the ring for the post-match interview. He refers to Tormenta as the People's Champion. And I with all due respect to Tormenta, I was like, how is she the People's Champion? In what regard is she the People's Champion? I mean, look, I get that he has to try to promote and pump up and, place his champions on the pedestal, but seriously, how on earth is she looked at as the People's Champion? By any aspect. I mean, there's been several people that have been looked at and called that for a reason. And Sting in his early, well, they call him Surfer Sting now. Back then he was just Sting. But back in those days, in the early WCW, he was, quote, a People's Champion and a franchise. But that was because he was like the guy, when everybody else was jumping ship to WCW, he held the flag. He was their guy. He was the champion of their people. Therefore, is the People's Champ. DDP became that because people groundswelled behind him when he was making his rise. And they started calling him the People's Champion there. Because of that, the support that he got, the love that he got from the fans out there. And it was very evident. This wasn't just hyperbole. It wasn't stuff that they just made up. He gave the Diamond Cutter sign out there. They gave it back en masse. He got basketball stars giving him the Diamond Cutter while he's in the stands at a basketball game. He was the People's Champion. No one was going to argue that point, especially the WCW fan. The Rock was a different story. He called himself the People's Champ, not out of sarcasm, but somewhat out of spite to the fans. It was a heel thing for him doing it, and then it just grew into being reality. He started calling himself the People's Champ when he was supposed to be unliked. But he was kind of, in his own world. I'm still the People's Champ. Boo. Until his efforts at that time won the audience over. And once he won them over, then he became the People's Champ, legitimately. Where and what has Tormenta done that would align her with the idea of being the People's Champ? Beyond the fact that Dave McClain just said so. So, I don't know. Tormenta says something, McClain yells, "No translation needed." I was like, really? I need a translation. I didn't understand it. And then Paola Mayfield and Abilene Maverick come out the ringside, and McClain has to act like he has no idea why they're out there. What? Look at that, Nigel. It's Paola Mayfield. This is Abilene Maverick. I'm sounding more like Jared Seinfeld. But what are they doing out here, Nigel? And fortunately for Nigel, he's like, you know why they're here. At least he said that and didn't play along with his stupidity. But, I mean, stuff like that. It's just it's asinine. Why are you acting like you have no clue? What are they doing here? What do they want? As she's only said in 3 or 4 different promos, I want the championship, including that episode. But I don't have a clue. This show is bad, man. I'm sorry. It is bad. It is a bad wrestling show. And it ain't getting no better. And I don't even think Dave McClain cares that it's getting any better. For I really wish that whatever promises were made, somebody tells me, hey, look, these are the things that we were told we were going to have. We were going to have a live TV show every week on such and such. Or we was going to be on CBS. We was going to get action figures or have a pay-per-view. I just wish I knew what it was, what the promises that were made that have suddenly, well, I shouldn't say suddenly, that have not occurred, that have made some people sour on it. I really, really, really wish that I knew what they were. Because as I was going through these notes, it just hit me. I was like, when's the last time you heard them even mention the fact that they had a card game? Or have they done it at all? When have you seen them run a commercial for that thing? Hey guys, now available the wild card game. You can get it to anything. When was the last time you seen them show a shirt that you can purchase that was not the WOW logo shirt? That's the only shirt that you ever see on WOW's TV that's produced by WOW is the WOW logo shirt. You'll see those. Or the tracksuit or something like that. As far as somebody else's shirt and merchandise goes, nope. Because it's more important that you support WOW than any individual in it. Make no mistake about that. When was the last time we seen them even bring up the idea that they used to air on Vice TV? I'm not sure that they air there anymore. Aside from what you see right then, right there on that show, they pretty much don't talk about any of that. It just kind of comes and goes. And as long as we get to have our fun and our little playpen, then, that's all that matters. If these people do not grow as professional wrestlers or become household names because we're not trying to make it any bigger, then, oh well. If you quit, fine. We'll get another one to look just like you. And don't think that won't happen. Somebody walks out of that company tomorrow in a season or 2, if they're still on the air, they will find somebody else to just replace that spot. It will not shock me that they will not turn up with a new Polynesian-esque wrestler next season because Tiki ain't there. I mean, they still got Kalaki, the Island Girl. So they managed to fill that spot. They still have their goth person, so they got that spot. They still got their heavy metal / rock person. Now they got their mechanic. Now they got their genius. Now they got their blondes. Now that they've got all their spots filled. But when somebody else slides out of it, and somebody else will come back in. They don't need an Americana now because they got a Santana Garrett. When they didn't have Santana Garrett, that's when you suddenly had an Americana that looked just like her. Need further proof? Who was Lana Starr's faction before she got the Fab Four? Team Blondage. Same color scheme. Pink and black. Basically doing the same gimmick. We're the mean girls on the block. Stop me when I'm saying something wrong here. And when they were gone, you had a Fab Four come in. It is all just, characters that I don't want to believe that this will happen, but it would not shock me if they just had a bunch of gimmicks that was sitting on a hard drive somewhere just ready to give to somebody. I got this idea for a character. I can't wait until somebody auditions so I could just slap it on them. You look like a magician. You know how to do any tricks? Nope, that doesn't matter. Random Mirage, here you go. Wear this. Just stuff like that. Just on and on and on. All right, yeah, look, I don't want to start veering off any more than what I have. That was the review of WoW and their one-match show, and that is the best thing that I can say about it. It was a one-match show. I wish that it had more stuff going for it. I wish that there was some more action to the match that I could turn around and be like, yeah, it was a one-match show, but this match was incredible. When I told somebody else that it was a one-match show, my other wrestling friend at work, the first thing is thinking, well, you think they're going to have a lengthy match? I was about to laugh right there. I was like, no. They are not going to have a lengthy match. I was like, I don't know how they're going to do it, but they're going to fluff this show all the way up. Because a match that goes beyond 12 to 13 minutes in WoW is next to impossible. And I was right. They fluffed this show all the way up, and that match wasn't that long than a normal WoW match. You got your 10 to 15 minutes maybe of that, and then that was it. Moved on. I don't even think it was 10 to 15. It was probably more like 10. So there we have it, folks. That was it. I would normally read through what has aired or what is going to air, but as you can tell, because I put this off, that episode is long already aired. The next one, which will be episode 410, season 4, episode 10, Moment of Truth is what they called it, and it aired on the 15th of November. And since that has already aired, and since I've already seen it, I'm not going to go through the measure of reading it like I hadn't. In those other cases, I hadn't seen it yet. This particular instance, I have. I already know what my opinions are about that match. I already know who won and lost. A little better, but not by much. But we will save all of those comments for the next time that we go into the reviews of the show. So that being said, thank you for tuning in. If you are on YouTube, especially now since people are just cranking out AI-generated crap, like, share, subscribe, do the YouTube things. If you're listening to this in podcast format, a review, rating is always good. If you have not found what your particular favorite podcast platform happens to be and you just want some suggestion where you can find it all, well, you can just go to WPNWrestling.com and everything is there. All videos running on a 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week stream. And, of course, all podcast episodes drop there at the centerpiece. It is the nexus of all that is done. And closing that out, this is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying so long, and we'll see you in the next go round. And God, I hope that this show gets better. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.